Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. I do talk a lot about SEO, specifically how to succeed in Google's search engines, but that is not the same as being a successful business. I think businesses need to consider adopting a multi-channel marketing, meaning, yes, online is important, but so is being able to email existing clients or customers or initiating a referral campaign or other relationship building activities so that people, real people, know who you are, what you do, and where you do it. Welcome to Confessions of an SEO. It's great to have you back to Season 5, Episode 4. This will be the last show in January 2025. Today, I'm going to start a conversation about scale. And if you know anything about me or Confessions, this is probably not going to be the same conversation you think it will be or would have been when you heard me say the word scale. In fact, I think some of this will be considered blasphemy because right now there are a lot of businesses of all sizes and purposes that literally worship at the altar of scale or scaling what they're doing. I think this is going to be a good episode. I've always had my best thoughts after I grab my little Magic Mind mental performance shot. Now, it's definitely been a boost to what I call my mental resiliency. You know, during the day, because as most SEOs know, we're all switching hats all day long. Need an analysis? Got it. Need to look at server logs, to look at Googlebot behavior, learning some things that are probably more suitable for the rarest of all creatures, a coding SEO. That's surely not me. But I can really tell the difference. The times when I'm feeling so good that it seems like I accidentally forgot to order another batch. And before you ask, yes, you can set it up on auto ship. I've been on Magic Mind for a while, and I can really feel both the physical and mental difference at the end of every day. It feels normal. It's not a caffeine substitute. While it's backed with scientific studies and formulated in a way that makes its ingredients easier to get absorbed in the body, if you're someone who's careful about what you put in your body, you're going to love what you see on this label. I even had a functional doctor look at the ingredients, and they were very impressed. And still, with all that being true, nothing matters more to me than my own experience using it. I use it every day, or I would not talk about it here. If you want to try it, it's available in Sprouts, H-E-B, Central Market, or even on Amazon. And if you want to get a larger supply, you can save 45% off using my Magic Mind link. I'll put it in the description. It's magicmind.com/confessionsjan. Now, where was I? Oh, yes, to the scale dilemma. I think it's like anything else, like the person who said, everything is okay as long as it's in moderation. I think the urge to scale has to be a little like that. It is appropriate in one viewpoint. I mean, we do want to scale up auto manufacturing. You can't get an entire country on these roads that have been built if you can only make 12 cars a month. And I want to talk about how much the word scale or scaling is used in digital marketing, SEO, site creation, content creation, creation of things. People want to create content at scale. They want to apply all the data reports at scale. They want to create one thing and then create a button to just do that one thing over and over and over and over again. It's like the bubble over their head is something like, I just want to do this one thing one time and then have it forever and ever and ever and ever. So why am I talking about scale? Exactly. I think the scaling piece behaves a little bit like a virus in our thought process. Sometimes scale, this is just my opinion, but I think sometimes we use scale kind of is another word because shortcut doesn't sound so professional. Now, in case you're wondering, shortcut. I didn't know this until I got a little curious. I looked it up, and it turns out it first appeared in a late 1500s. It was like this Elizabethan poet, and it was around like 1592. But who needs history? We all went to elementary school. I remember the shortcut from our house through someone else's backyard to a street, a shorter street that came out that connected to the street where the school was. It felt like a massive saving of time. One could leave home later and still make it on time. But it also meant not telling my mom what we were doing, and I guess that was that fun, sneaky part of it too, when we were kids. But how scale presented itself to me this month, I was talking with a colleague about work early on in January, and we were talking about various things, and they said, they had a problem, and they wanted to come up with an automated solution that accomplished what they wanted to do, but that was also safe for their site. It was something that took up a fairly large portion of their day, and they just needed to offload it, but didn't want to go through everything to train a VA. And, fair enough. How hard could that be? Now, not going to go into the details because I know you guys, you're going to get out in the weeds, and the weeds is not where we're going today. So I reached out to someone who I know is very well versed in such things. It involved a thing called API, and there were several sites involved. And the idea was to take the manual work off the table and replace it with automation. And of course, there are Gmail emails involved. So you can see the plot thickens. So now in this sort of three-headed beast conversation, scale now raises its head. How many of these things can we run through the same software? Now, I'm a questioner, not a programmer, and I don't mind how simple it sounds when these things come out of my mouth. So I was starting the asking. And suddenly, through these questions, we're having a proxy conversation. And I'm like, okay, well, explain to me why we're here having a proxy conversation when we started with an automation conversation. So if you're familiar with proxies, proxies are things that stand in for you so that if you're doing anything on a computer, it can sort of obscure who you are. Not in any kind of, it's very normal. So anyway, so now we're having this IP conversation and being stealth about it. And I'm still like, why? I mean, I understand the need for being stealth, but I didn't understand how it fit into this automated conversation. Now, if you're not an SEO or someone involved in automations, software sometimes requires special codes or keys so that whatever is being done can be completed without having to stop and log into something else and do it. Because we want smooth, we want to set things up, we want to hit the start button. So now we start talking the time to set this up. We're not even at the automation piece. We're just talking about how to connect everything together. So we have the automation, so we have some concern for doing what is being done. And like I said, this is a very normal thing done. There's nothing untoward. It's something any business would do. And the only thing is, if we start to think in shortcuts, aka scale, now the concern grows for this most dreaded of all things, a digital footprint. Now, mind you, I'm relaying this conversation in far shorter timeline than it actually took place. This took weeks to get to this point because basically, we're talking friendly conversations. No one's getting paid. We're really just helping each other out. So it dawns on me at this point that we're having a scale conversation. How do we scale this thing up? So at the next call, I bring this up and ask, is there any reason that we can just set everything up on a one-to-one basis? One code per Gmail, and just code the automations that way. Now, if you've ever mentioned doing anything one-to-one on a digital project, let me just tell you, you are likely to feel as welcome to that conversation as a root canal. It's like, gasp, but that would take more time. So what do I know, right? I'm asking my colleagues, turning around and saying, well, how much time every day do you do these things? I know they told me in the beginning, but I just couldn't remember. And apparently this takes a couple of hours every day. Not to mention, also included in there is like this mental capacity and the ability to either set up reminders or manually remind yourself or themselves to get it done. So I'm thinking, okay, so if we talk about a couple of hours times 5 days a week, that can escalate pretty quickly. So then I turned to ask the automation guy, so are we talking much more than that? And the answer was, oh no, it would take less than 5 minutes. But you have to do that for each one. I don't know how many of you are SpongeBob fans, but you know that look that SpongeBob would give sometimes when something dawned on him and he's like, hey, wait a minute. So we're looking at something that could be done one time in less than 5 minutes that would both support the automation and steer clear of any complications or every negative thing that we've been talking about now for weeks. And likely only needs to be done for 5 things and done one time for 5 things versus a couple of hours every day for every week. So let me rephrase this another way because my mind can't quite take this in. I am a little taken aback. So I'm like, let me rephrase this. So we could do 25 minutes one time doing a one-on-one thing versus 10 hours every week in a year, which is just over 40 hours a month and just under 500 hours a year. How is this a question? I don't understand. So I find myself in these types of conversations, and a lot of times I'm wondering, like, how do we as an industry get here? And then I started thinking about all the conversations that are likely had in the business world, even as we speak. How many of them concern themselves about this very thing, that we need to do this thing and we need to do it in a way that we do it one thing, but we shove all these other things underneath it and avoid everything that's bad. So just to make sure it wasn't just me, I called another colleague who I know has had a fair amount of experience in the C-suite part of the world. And it's someone who's definitely more interested in getting things done than scheduling a meeting to talk about planning a meeting. So I called him up and was like, hey, when you were working at that other place, you mentioned the amount of time talking about scaling. So how, like in your particular case, it was like, how do we do this one thing and publish the hell out of it? But it's not working. Do you, in your professional opinion, think this pursuit of scaling is also a false flag? That the conversation isn't about scaling, it's about finding the shortest cut, the easiest button, the silver bullet. And I asked, why do you think this is? And, there is this absolute conviction that scaling is the answer to everything. Now, I can't go into the details of the conversation because that would be violating confidentiality, but it sure felt like all of those conversations, underneath them at the core, this was about the same thing. Distrusting any solution that required just a single factor of manual attention to something. I'm still gnawing on this because I just know, and I guess I just wonder, because I know these conversations happen so often, how much money, time, and energy is spent focusing on scale when the best answer likely is not to scale one piece of it. So the answer, if you're wondering, the automation is going to be set up one-to-one in the software. So there'll be no footprint and no chance of getting swept up into something, and all the pleasure of now freeing up the mental energy and to breathe and to take their business to the next level, because now what used to be manual is now going to be automated. Now, that kind of scaling I can really appreciate. Well, that is it for me this week. Check out Magic Mind. You can use my link, magicmind.com/confessionsjan. Indexilla is my indexing platform to get your content and backlink indexed, and it is so much within Google's terms of service. It's safe and boring for every type of link, even your money site. If you need help with your site, but you're not sure where to dig, contact my office. My specialty is forensic SEO. Does this mean I will find a silver bullet and bring you something that you never thought of? Well, not every time. But if you're stuck and you just want to double check and have someone look over you covering the bases with fresh eyes, by all means, reach out. To stay on the cutting edge of the state of indexing, check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. You can find it by searching for it, Crawl or No Crawl. It's even got its own knowledge graph. Thank you for being a listener. I hope I can count on you coming back next week for more SEO conversations, observations, and maybe a few testing stories. If you have questions about today's topic, I'd love to hear from you. You can text Confessions at 512-222-3132. Thanks again, and until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.